Hey everyone, welcome. It is Friday night, February 16th, and tonight we're going to preview LAFC for the 2024 Major League Soccer season. Joined today by Philly and the Scarf from Defenders of the Banc podcast. It was great the last 2 years, so we had to run it back. So glad you guys could take the time out to join us tonight. How you guys doing?
Excellent, my man. It's good to be back on here. We absolutely love doing this, and we love the kit you're wearing more than anything else, too.
Thank you. I got this Fanatics,
Nice.
not affiliated, for like $20. I think this was one of the inaugural ones with like the gray sleeves here.
That's the 25-year anniversary one, yeah.
And I got the scarf, like the first season LAFC scarf for like $12. Perfect. Love it. The league is just so much better when there are two West Coast teams that are just killing it every year. An East Coast guy like me being able to turn on a game at 10 o'clock, unobstructed, wife's in bed, all my friends are up, their kids are asleep. It's great. It's great. And yeah, I really hope you guys.
We were talking about this a little bit pre-show. Apple TV has done wonders for our watchability for all 29 teams now in the league too. It's been great.
Yeah, it absolutely has, and it's been a great run. I have some graphics I'm going to pull up here in just a second. Why don't you guys go and tell us a little bit about what happened in the 2023 season?
Go for it.
Well, we lost MLS Cup after playing 54 games on the year. An unprecedented run by any MLS club. No team had ever played more games in a calendar year. Surprisingly, we only won 22, 23 MLS regular season games. It was a season of ups and downs. Our guys were absolutely gassed. We dealt with a couple of injuries, but every team does. We dealt with a couple of players leaving, a couple of players coming. Every team does. But what no team had to deal with is the ridiculous travel and schedule. And obviously on the back end of that is all of MLS's salary restrictions and player restrictions that they have. So 54 matches, and unfortunately, several bites at the cherry, as Max Bredos likes to say, but no trophies other than the Western Conference title at the end of the season.
It really was the longest season. By the time we got to MLS Cup, between the players, the front office for sure, and definitely the supporters, we were all burnt out towards the tail end. It really did feel like the longest year ever. And while there were a lot of nuances to the season, the League's Cup, which was a lot of fun, we had that amazing 82,000 game at the Rose Bowl against the Galaxy, an unfortunate loss. We got to go back there again against Rayados, another unfortunate loss for us. We got pretty tired at the tail end of the season. And again, not only the players, by the time we were done, the front office was just thrilled to finally get some breaks, and it was a well-deserved break. But as Giorgio Chiellini said in the press conference at the end of the MLS Cup final, as unfortunate it has been having the run that we did, it's better to play for a cup than to not play for a cup.
Yeah.
Absolutely. How was that game in Pasadena? Because that's where the 94 U.S. World Cup final was held, and that holds a ton of people, the Rose Bowl, right?
Yeah, look, it's great when you're finally in the stadium. Getting to the Rose Bowl is miserable. Getting out of the Rose Bowl is miserable. The stadium is great for as old as it is. You feel the history, you feel the nostalgia, but you also feel the ghosts of Galaxy past, if I'm going to be perfectly honest too, because it was a place where while the 3252 was there and full-throated and amazing, and the rest of our supporters filled out the stands far more so than the Galaxy supporters, it just never felt like it was a what do they call those? A neutral site games, right? It didn't feel like it was a neutral site game at all.
No, of course it wasn't a neutral site game, but it was, you want to talk about the Ghosts of Galaxy past? I don't buy that part of it, mainly because when the supporters for the Galaxy unleashed their tifo, they tore it up on the right side as they were raising it. So in a way, there was a lot of comedic value there. So if there truly were ghosts in that arena, in that stadium, they certainly didn't do a good job preventing their own supporters from looking like schmucks, because that was hilarious. But from our perspective, I'll just say a little bit, we were pampered a little bit being in the press box, which was air conditioned on the 4th of July, which is really hot in Southern California. We had a darn good time. And let's also keep in mind the fact that this game was rescheduled. It was supposed to be in the early part of the season, but Yeah, but because we had a phenomenon that, we don't really see in Southern California, rain, and the Rose Bowl itself doesn't have a really good drainage system. They were swimming to try to fix things, but it worked out well, everything other than the result of that game, of course.
So LAFC went 14-10-10 in 2024, finished third in the West. 54 goals scored, 39 goals conceded. Everything looks good there to me. Plus 15 goal differential. And like I said, I do have to mention that you guys did lose MLS Cup. So overall, a good year. Did you guys feel like there was any moment where you just thought, yeah, this is going to happen, we're going to make it to MLS Cup?
I mean, look, I never felt like we weren't the best team in the league, to be perfectly honest. I feel like getting to MLS Cup, while it wasn't a foregone conclusion, it was such a fight to get there. And again, like we've said, I mean, not to make excuses, but our guys were gassed by the time we got there.
Of course.
I felt like, especially in MLS Cup, we watched for the first 75, 77 minutes, our team just get outplayed left and right. And they absolutely... Columbus won that match more than we did anything to lose that match. Columbus played the best game that day. Columbus played the right formation. They attacked in the right ways. They defended everywhere where they needed to. And we had a little bit of unluckiness, obviously, with the handball call that led to the PK. It just, at the end of the day, though, I personally, I don't know how you felt, Philly. We were sitting right next to each other. I never felt like we were in that match after they scored that first goal.
No, they absolutely smoked us like a pack of cools. It wasn't fun. But that season, while yes, it could be viewed as a success, we have to obviously mention the fact that they put all their eggs in the basket of the CONCACAF Champions League. That's where the mindset really was, from the brass all the way down to the supporters. And then when we lost that final to Leon, which that was another game we got our asses whooped, that really took the heart out of the players, and it really took the wind out of our sails. For the longest time, you can see that the effect on them, you could see it on the pitch. And I mean, I distinctly remember being in a press conference with Carlos Vela and him saying, yeah, I mean, our hearts were absolutely broken. We literally put everything into that final, and to come up short really bugged us. But that was a hangover that lasted a fair amount of time. It wasn't like one game or two games. I mean, we're looking probably at about a half a dozen games where you could see the effect of losing that Champions League final.
Yeah, and I think the overall thought about the West is no one wanted to win it last year. Like, when you guys weren't clicking on all cylinders, no other team stepped up. You had St. Louis City come out super hot. They played 500 ball the rest of the year. Seattle Sounders, I guess they kind of finished hot, but Dynamo, RSL, Vancouver, Portland, San Jose, everyone was just about in it, and no one would ever finally put the death blow and take the West. So once playoffs came, you guys were third seed. Didn't matter. Blew through it.
And I think it was big for us to be able to do some of those things on the road that we did, right? Because we are a club that historically has not performed well in big matches on the road, certainly. And I think that was a big test for us. So going into MLS Cup playoffs, that was one of the things that we were talking about. Like, how are we going to fare in some of these road matches that we had? And at least we can say we took a step forward in the right direction there.
Great. Absolutely agree. Let's take a look at some contributors from last season. Denny Bouanga, 20 goals, 6 assists. You had Carlos Vela, 9 goals, 7 assists. Timmy Tillman, 4 goals, 1 assist. Ryan Hollingshead, 4 goals. And Matus Bogush, 3 goals, 3 assists. I'm positive that's not how it's pronounced.
Actually, that was pretty good. You did that really well.
Okay. My co-hosts always make fun of me. I'm like the book smart guy who learns all the big words from reading and never really heard them told to me. So these names are tough sometimes. Looking at this contributors chart, obviously you have the big dog, Denny Bouanga, and then Carlos Vela, maybe a bit of a down year. After that, not much. Talk about the contributors from last season, please.
Yeah, I mean, look, it starts and ends with Denny Bouanga, right? Setting the MLS record for goals in a calendar year by an MLS player. He was incredible. But what we kept asking, I mean, Philly and I talked about it ad nauseum last year, is if not Denny, then who? Because Carlos Vela, I think, started out the year with a hat trick, right? In the
against
first
Colorado,
match.
yeah.
So you're talking about 33 matches after that with just 6 goals. He was still contributing. I think he had 19 goal contributions across all competitions during the course of the season.
Scored a lot during the Champions League run in Open Cup.
Absolutely. So I think his demise has been exaggerated a little bit. And it's important to note, and I think we'll talk about this later, he is not currently under contract with us or any other club right now. So really, you're looking at our returning leading goal scorer other than Denis Bouanga being Timmy Tillman and Ryan Hollingshead at that point, which is not a prospect that we love all that much. We'll talk about the guys that we brought in later, but it is again going to be the storyline going into the season. If not Denis, then who?
Yeah, it's he definitely set things on fire. Like after he scored that goal to enable us to clinch the Supporter Shield the year prior in Portland, I mean, he started going on a tear. We knew the guy was going to be big, but we didn't realize how big of a scorer he was going to be. I mean, he would start bagging hat trick after hat trick, and again, I say this from these press conferences. I mean, he'd never scored a hat trick in a professional game before. Now, all of a sudden, he's doing it on multiple occasions. When he was on fire, we were a tough team to beat, no question. But then, Carlos Vela having the type of season he had, it's certainly, you see him, and he's certainly gone down in terms of his ability, but I think he's a lot happier in the sense that he doesn't have to be the main focal point, the goal scorer. We all know he's going to do some kind of amazing stuff with the from the left side, but he really focused more on being a facilitator rather than being a goal scorer. And while, yes, 9 goals and 7 assists doesn't seem like a lot, if you count all the other postseason tournaments or during season tournaments, he did contribute quite a bit. And most players in this league would kill to have his kind of numbers on a down year.
Absolutely. Some respect being shown in the comment section. Steven Drew saying, Crew Supporters here, you guys gave us a hell of a game in the Cup. You guys are always a solid club. I'm sure the next Cup isn't too far away. That's the hope. That's why we play the game, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Look, our Cup was last two years ago, right? So we have fond memories.
Yeah, and I got to say thank you for that. Look, nothing but love to the Columbus Crew and their supporters as well. We were on your side when all that fiasco was going on with the potential move to Austin. We thought that was horrendous. Glad that everything stuck about. You guys won a couple of cups in the interim. I mean, one of the original teams. I mean, it was a phenomenal support, beautiful stadium, just nothing but love and appreciation of Columbus.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's name an MVP on last season, Denis Bouanga, right? That's pretty
Yeah.
It's not even close.
Can we pick one player who overperformed their expectations?
Man, I'll say this about my selection for this is when we brought in Giorgio Chiellini.
Of course he was going to say that.
Absolutely.
Of course he was going to say that.
The skeleton who was done and had nothing left to offer.
Well,
the Italian corpse.
His demise greatly exaggerated, right? And I think what happened with Giorgio our first year is we saw, wow, he's a leader. He's playing like he's young again. He's really invigorated by Los Angeles. And then we didn't know what to expect coming into his second year, right? Another year older, a little bit more mileage on the legs. How much would he have left? And I dare anybody to find for me a better center back in all of Major League Soccer last year than Giorgio Chiellini when he was healthy. I think Giorgio still, I mean, he plays the game like Neo sees the Matrix, right? It's just different for Giorgio Chiellini out there. And so if there's a player who I feel maybe outkicked his coverage a little bit last year, it's that Giorgio was even better, I think, than he was the year before, and really didn't get enough credit, whether it's best 11 or whether it's, all-star nod, whatever it might have been. I think it had to be Giorgio. What do you think?
I mean, I've got 2. I'm going to mention one briefly, but the other one I'm going to mention, I want to go into more detail. I do think Ryan Hollingshead towards the end of the season exceeded expectations. He ended up scoring 4 goals, which is the second highest over the course of a career per season. I think he's had a couple seasons where he's had 6 and a couple other seasons where he's had 4. When he started scoring in the season, we started operating pretty well and efficiently. But the player that I truly do believe exceeded expectations, because there were really none on him. It was more hoping that things could go through. I think John McCarthy really exceeded expectations, because with Maxime Crépeau being out still, we didn't know exactly who the starter was going to be or who they would bring in. The smart money would say J-Mac, give it to the MLS Cup MVP from 2022. And J-Mac had some solid performances the first 2/3, 3/4 of the season. He kept us in a lot of games. And even in the games that we lost, I don't think the fault was ever to be on him. It was a breakdown in the back line. So I truly think J-Mac exceeded all his expectations.
Love it. Is there anyone who underperformed a little bit?
Yeah.
Now, you've already kind of squashed Carlos Vela, so we can't really use him. While the stat line may not bear out to be, right, he was still very useful for the team.
Look, I think, the easiest dead horse to beat is Mario Gonzalez, right?
Ooh, that's who you were going to pick?
We brought him in as the big name, and he was terrible. In fact, so bad that we have jettisoned him elsewhere before the start of this season. The name was big with Mario Gonzalez. The expectations were bigger. And, I mean, he just looked lost, was running the wrong lanes at times, was filling in space that was needed by other players to make their runs. And when he got the ball on his feet, you know, he came in as the pistolero. We started calling him El Agua Pistolero after a while because he was just completely inept on offense. My choice is absolutely Mario Gonzalez.
All right, fine. I love the guy. He's a class act, a gentleman, and I wish him all the best. But I mean, there were times where I didn't even know Kellen Acosta was on the pitch. I think he was a person that we were looking for a lot more from. Now, I don't know the statistics from how he handled himself defensively. It's been a minute since I've looked at that, what his passing efficiency was, how productive during the games he was. But to me, there were times where he was out there. I just didn't even realize or see him playing. And we never miss these games. We're always there. We're always analyzing things, always going back and watching. He's somebody who I'd say really underperformed.
To Philly's point, how many goals and assists combined do you think he had during the MLS regular season?
Well, he's not on the chart, so less than 3 total combined goals.
Rhymes with 0, actually. He had 0 goals, and I know he's not just there for goals and assists, right? But when you have a guy on the ball as much as he is on set pieces and everything else, and we love Kellen. We absolutely love Kellen. But it was one of those seasons where it just felt like the extra pass, the extra touch, the finer point on things that he had put a season or 2 ago just wasn't there.
Yeah.
I think Philly's answer is better than mine.
Your answer's pretty darn good.
When someone touches the ball that much, you think even just incidentally they would get an assist or a goal somewhere.
Right.
Let's talk about the transaction. We got to turn the page on 2023, look ahead to 2024. Now, this was accurate to a couple hours ago, and it's still not really that accurate because on outgoing players, I have Carlos Vela, who is, I guess, currently not on LAFC, so I guess that's kind of outgoing, although we don't know where his future holds. Kellen Acosta, you guys got rid of 2 goalies, McCarthy and Crepeau. Diego Palacios and Giorgio Chiellini to retirement. Really love Giorgio Chiellini was talking about coaching, and it seems like he kind of fell in love with LA. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Because it seems like he's not going back to Italy. This is his home now.
So the true story is he has a daughter in grade school, and he's waiting until she's done with the school year to likely go back. So we may only have Giorgio. It might be an odd July transfer window for one of our coaches. Let's put it that way, which would be an interesting thing. But I think after this summer, I think Giorgio, if he decides to stick around for the rest of the year, then we'll be all the richer for it. But I do think Giorgio might be gone in July.
And he's trying a type of position coach, almost like a NFL kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I think it's like a defender emeritus. Like he has this PhD in how to play center back. So they're like, look, just put him on the pitch at all times. But and look, Philly, you and I kind of talked about what we're looking for going into next season with Maxime Crepeau gone, with Giorgio Chiellini gone, and I guess to a point with Kellen Acosta gone. Where's the leadership going to come from that dog out there on the pitch that is going to get into the fray, to go to battle with you? That's going to be the tough part for us.
I mean, I do think that's going to fall on Denny Bouanga, and I think a lot of leadership is going to fall on the shoulders of Hugo Lloris, somebody who's a veteran, 38 years old. He's got himself a World Cup. He's got himself a World Cup runners-up. I mean, one of the elite keepers during his time. Now at 38, we can't exactly say that, but he was brought in a lot for obviously his leadership stuff. For me, what was surprising was McCarthy and Crepeau. Now, when we signed Hugo Lloris, it was awesome and exciting. And when you heard about how much we got, how much we paid for him, which is virtually nothing. His salary is, there's people down my block that make more money than he does per year. And he's a professional athlete with World Cup pedigree. I didn't think we needed to upgrade our keepers. McCarthy needed to get paid. No doubt about it. I make more money than John McCarthy probably does right now. And that's not, a lot in terms of professional athlete. So he went over to the Galaxy. We have nothing but love for him, but he deserved to get paid. Fair enough. But he's not a snake, not a Raheem Edwards type. Maxime Crepeau going to Portland, though, on the other hand, was a shocker because when he came back, man, he was a warrior. He was just motivated. He was just operating on a different level, and he was really solid. I didn't think we needed to upgrade our goalkeeper scenario. That was a big surprise to me.
Sure.
Yeah,
What about the forward depth? Now you have Thomas Angel as your number 9. Obviously, son of New York Red Bull and world legend Juan Pablo Angel. Is that going to be enough to hold it down in the number 9 position this year?
Well, actually, I think it's the guy 4 rows down, David Martinez. I think Tomas Angel is going to be a depth piece for us, and David Martinez is going to be the guy that we'll see a little bit more of. And I think the dream scenario is potentially having Carlos Vela come back and play in the middle between Denis Bouanga and David Martinez and Kike Oliveira, who, look, if you watch enough of Christian Kike Oliveira, you're going to see some incredible things. You're also going to see some passes to absolutely nobody and some shots to the 13th row of whatever supporter section that goal happens to be sitting in front of. So it's going to be a learning curve, but I think Kike Oliveira is poised to do some things this season. I think between David Martinez, Kike Oliveira, and Omar Campos, who, look, losing Chiqui Palacios, losing an all MLS caliber left back like the way that we did, he is going to be the toughest player to replace. But if there's a player out there that could be a like for like replacement for not just what he does, but to do it at the level that he does it, Omar Campos is an incredible get for LAFC. The kid is still just 21 years old, had well over 100 caps with Santos Laguna, already brought into El Tri, and he is a player who I think is going to make the loss of Chiqui Palacios. I don't want to say it's not going to be felt, right? Because that kid is incredible.
Of course.
But the dynamism that we will have with Campos, Martinez, Bouanga, potentially with Eduardo Atuesta back in the midfield, we somehow got younger and more dynamic. Just don't ask us about our depth
yet. So talk about Eduardo Atuesta, an incredible player for LAFC, his first bout. Leaves the club. It looks like he's coming back. Is that finalized yet?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's on loan, so whether or not like the deal with Palmeiras becomes final, that part it is final.
No, so he's with us.
He's on loan though.
No, but we have an option to buy.
Yeah.
And it looks like if you read the Palmeiras Twitter, they're like, "That's okay, LAFC. Please purchase him. We're good. We had a run." I mean, look, he went over there, won a bunch of trophies, didn't get a ton of playing time, but played in some really big matches, got some really good experience, but I don't think he's going to get the burn consistently with Palmeiras. He knows he'll get the burn consistently here. And, oh, by the way, come back to a hero's welcome. The guy was incredible for us for the first few seasons of our club's history.
Yeah, the question will be like where his motivation is. We know he's happy that he's here. I got to chat with him briefly on Wednesday when we were doing the press conference, unveiling all the players. And he said, this is home to him. He grew up here along with the club. So, he's thrilled about that. But you got to wonder, a kid that comes from South America in LA, did his time, moved to a big club in Brazil. Would the downfall, not the downfall, what's the word I'm looking for? The lack of playing time, like how's that going to affect his attitude coming back into MLS? I feel like, he might have been a stepping stone for him, but I don't know if he would have ever intended on coming back initially just because of like where his ceiling was. I mean, here's a kid who probably thought he should have been in Europe, and now he's like, great, I'm kind of back where I started, where I began. So that's where I'd really like to see how his body language is as he's on the pitch. I'm sure when the 32-52 starts roaring, he'll get back into it, but kind of makes you wonder like how he really feels about it.
Yeah, we were kind of talking about that with Chicho Arango and Real Salt Lake, with Columbus Cruz Diego Rossi, like these guys who have gone and now are back again. You kind of wonder what that means for them and their motivation and everything. But man, Eduardo Atuesta in the midfield, he's certainly an upgrade over Kellen Acosta.
Yep.
I think he's certainly an upgrade over Timothy Tillman. As much as we love Timmy Tillman, I think we'll see Bogusz as the third midfielder besides Ilie Sanchez and Eduardo Atuesta over Timmy Tillman, but time will tell. I just think Bogusz, again, he's young, he's dynamic. Like I think it could be a really fun season with some really frustrating games at times because we have guys missing the goal by 50 yards because they're taking shots they shouldn't.
It's interesting. I'm usually the optimistic guy, and he's the cautiously optimistic one, where we're kind of flip-flopping it this time around because, well, a lot of these signings that we had came late, and LAFC loves to be really secretive and announce these signings as absolutely late as possible.
Right.
And while Martinez might be the best Venezuelan ever, he's 18, everybody's talking about what a stud he is. Will that translate here? I mean, how many times have we heard, oh, this is going to be the next coming of so-and-so, only for him to be in a league that might be a little more physical than he anticipated. Maybe the ego might be a little too higher. Plus, he actually even hasn't really trained with us. He's been with Venezuela.
Yeah.
He's going to be back in LA only next week, only this coming week. But he should be available for selection on the 24th against Seattle. So it'll be interesting to see how he gels. He's 18. He's going to be in LA with so many temptations and so much fun to have. That's another thing to take into consideration.
Absolutely. So let's say we turn on LAFC on a random, Saturday night. What should we be looking for as far as play style, tactics, formations? Can we talk about the X's and O's for a minute?
Last year it was let the other club possess the ball, counter the hell out of them, and Denis Bouanga scores a goal. I think, again, and look, Steve has been nothing but not adaptive to what his personnel is. It's not the Bob Bradley, we're playing in a 4-3-3 until I say we're not playing in a 4-3-3 anymore. Steve adapts. Steve tries things. It hasn't always gone well. 5 in the back is it's like a swear word around the LAFC practice facility. But I really do think with the amount of youth and the amount of wiggle, of sizzle, I think we're going to get a little shake and bake out there. We're going to get a little ticky-tacky every now and then. I think this will be a more exciting club all around to watch than they were last year. Last year, you could just watch Denis Bouanga, and you were pretty much seeing, 60% of our offense when it came to goals and assists. So I think that the style of play will be a little bit more front-footed this year than last year. I think we saw that, especially in MLS Cup, how we sat back as much as we could and then got killed by sitting back as much as we did. I think we're going to have to alter it a little bit, especially, look, with no Carlos Vela, being able to go out and push the pace a little bit more with, whether it's Kike Oliveira, David Martinez, obviously Denis Bouanga. I think we're going to want to push the pace a little bit more than last year.
Yeah, you brought up what I was going to mention. Like, it all is all contingent upon whether or not Carlos Vela is back and in the starting lineup. If he's starting, I don't think they're going to go out there and attack the way that you just mentioned, because they're going to not cater towards him, but obviously play a type of offense that's going to enable him to participate in it. Or we can see him come back as a TAM signing and he just comes in 65th minute and becomes part of the offense. I think the Carlos Vela factor is really where the question mark is. Scratch him completely from everything, and then I would say yes, everything that he said, 100% accurate.
Okay, so I had to come up with a depth chart just because that's what I do. And I'm not someone in the know or anything like that. We kind of used data from last season. I also used the help of Ben Wright from Nashville, who puts all his 29 depth charts online. And these things are immaculate with player ratings, colors, depth, the whole deal. Here's what I came up with. And I know it's wrong in a couple places, but we're going to that even better conversation for us to have there. Up top, you got Mario Gonzalez and Thomas Angel, but apparently that is going to be David Martinez now at the 9.
That's our hope, or look, it's definitely not going to be Mario Gonzalez because he's not on the club, and I don't think Thomas Angel starts. So we'll see.
Really? Huh.
No.
Okay.
Let's talk about the wings. You got Denis Bouanga out on the left side and Christian Oliveira on the right.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a step up year for Kike. Denis Bouanga is the most dynamic scorer in the league. And so he's a set it and forget it kind of guy. And towards the end of last year, what's kind of surprised Philly and I is that Kike Oliveira became a set it and forget it guy on the right side. We just kept rolling him out there, and he got better and he got better and he got better, but he didn't perform at the level that one would like the LAFC's right winger to be performing in this offense. We don't want to roll out a guy who might have 10 goals on a season. We want to roll out a guy who we can say, how many more than 10 goals will he have on a season? And I don't know if Kike Oliveira is there yet, but he is a player who he takes on players, he dribbles through, and he started to make a lot of the right passes towards the end of the year. But man, it was frustrating to watch him at times pass the ball, cross the ball to absolutely nobody.
Yeah, we'd have to cut Buke from the depth chart because he's in Spain on loan.
Yeah. No, Steve.
All right. So let's go now to the midfield. We have kind of twin 8s and a 6. We think that's how they line up traditionally. Ilya Sanchez is the number 6 as long as his legs will let him stay on the field.
He ages like a fine wine, man. He'll be good.
He has. When he was playing with SKC, it seemed like it was over, and he very much surprised me over the last 2 seasons, coming in and playing strong with LAFC.
I mean, I think a lot of that is due to the fact that, like, when his final year, I mean, everybody was hurt at SKC, so Vermees utilized him in so many different positions.
Yeah, wasn't he a right back?
Yeah, I mean, he was playing. Yeah, he was exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, he was playing all kinds of positions that he wasn't normally accustomed to. And while we thought he was good for dead, I mean, he came to us and obviously helped us tremendously.
Yeah, I don't know that I agree with Justin. It's a retool, but I'll say this: we're retooling the way that NASCAR does their pit stops. You got a little bit of time, and you got to get right back out there and keep going at the same speed, right? So it's going to be interesting. And again, I don't know if it'll be Tillman or Bogusz out there, but either way, I think Atuesta and Ilie Sanchez I think those are absolute locks every single match as long as they're healthy.
Absolutely. So let's move to the back line. That's about what we haven't talked about yet too much. Omar Campos on the left. I guess we did mention him a little bit. Ryan Hollingshead out on the right. Aaron Long and Jesus Murillo in the center. You guys, I don't normally think of LAFC as being, a defensive powerhouse. You guys did really good last year. 39 goals against. That's third in the West. You guys had a great offense, a very solid defense. I expect that to continue. Let's talk about this back four.
No Giorgio Chiellini means that it's going to be an adjustment, because Giorgio hid a lot of ills at times and made some plays that just showed why, again, over and over and over. He is a master class center back. But that being said, Aaron Long, we didn't see a whole ton of Aaron Long last year. Murillo took all the steps necessary, right, to be that next great center back. We've been lucky with Laurent Simon and Walker Zimmerman and obviously now Giorgio Chiellini. And I think Jesus Murillo is ready to take the mantle as the next great center back that we have. But it'll be interesting. We don't have a lot of depth there.
A lot of that's also contingent upon what we're going to see and how healthy the knee of Eddie Segura is. He might be one of those players that we see inserted in the lineup. And then you got a couple of other really young defenders that made their way onto the roster from the academy. You got Eric Dueñas, although I wouldn't completely utilize him in a defender role. I mean, he gets thrown around quite easily. But the 3 out of those 4, Campos and Hollingshead, the outside backs, I expect them to pretty much play more than most of the other players on the team. And Murillo as well. He's going to be the most important piece in that center position. It's just a matter of who's going to step up. I think it's Aaron Long's job. It's his position to keep. But he's got, the dogs clawing in on him. And if Eddie Segura can even be 75% of what he was before his season-ending injury, I think we're going to be okay. But you said it. I mean, these past couple of years with LAFC, we had games where we score 5 but let in 4. With a defender as our head coach, somebody who spent his career as a defender, they've changed their defensive schematics completely. And yes, they're a lot better at keeping the ball out of the back of the net than they were during the Bob Bradley era.
All right, so let's finish up with some storylines to follow throughout the season. I just think, a random Saturday night, what should we be watching? What are some storylines we should follow throughout the year, through the summer, through the next transfer window? First one is, can they establish themselves as early MLS Cup contenders?
I don't think it's necessary to, actually. I'll take a little bit of the pressure off the club early. Last year we finished 3rd in the West and still made our way to MLS Cup final. And, you can argue that we were close to drawing at 2-2 and then having that go in extra time. So I don't think being first in the West because of what we did last year will be as important. But when you say early MLS Cup contenders, I think that what everyone will see before the July transfer window is that LAFC is as potent of a club in Major League Soccer and as disjointed of a club in Major League Soccer as there is at times as well, because of all the new pieces, all the new names, all the new fittings together. So I guess I could have
replaced MLS contender with, like, are they going to be dominant out the gate?
Yeah, and I think if we are, that's trouble for the rest of the league, because we have open DP spots and we have players that will be filling into their roles over the course of the first couple of months of the season.
Sure.
I think if we are, then the league is really in trouble. I don't think we will.
Yeah, fair point. Yes, we do have open DP spots. I think if we establish ourselves as MLS contenders, it won't be till sometime after the All-Star game. This is going to be a matter of a team trying to gel together with a lot of new pieces.
Great. So next up in this, I guess we're talking about gelling with new pieces. Who steps up as a secondary goal scorer
Mati Bogusz.
Oh, you
That's
think
my
it'll be
pick.
Matty?
Yeah.
I think it'll be a combination of both, and this is me hedging my answer, obviously, but Kiki Oliveira and David Martinez. I think by the time you look up at the All-Star break, both of them will be close to having 10 goals apiece.
Wow. Okay, that's a big step.
Yeah.
And my last one is kind of how do they fill out midfield depth? We talked about who we have in a lot of positions. We have 4 guys for 3 positions. Is that going to be enough to play 55 games again this year? Probably not.
Well, I think, one of the storylines that's not up there is LAFC won't have to play 54 games this year. Obviously, we didn't qualify for a CONCACAF Champions Cup. We only have the Leagues Cup, and who knows what the hell's going on with Open Cup right at this point. But I think that when you see an LAFC club that's going to be playing 40 to 44 games this season instead of 54 over the course of, a 10-month kind of compact season, sure. I think that'll be huge. And that'll be the most important thing going into this season, to see how we play without being dog tired for the first 4 or 5 months out of the year and then having to regroup.
Yeah, and for not having to put all our heart into one tournament, because that I really think was the downfall of our side last year. I mean, honestly, even if they would have won CONCACAF Champions League, I still think that could have potentially been a downfall, because then the hangover of the success might have been kind of how it was with Seattle when they had won the Champions League the year before. They obviously poo-pooed the rest of the season, but if you win Champions League, as far as I'm concerned,
do whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, I told him this. If we win Champions League, I don't even care if we don't go to playoffs.
The hangover is mitigated by having silverware in the closet.
Absolutely.
Yes, a nice international one.
That silverware in particular, that's the goal for any MLS club, right?
Hangover for a meaning.
MLS Cup. Yeah.
Hangover for celebration. All right, Philly in the scarf from Defenders of the Banc. One last time, let us know where we can find your work.
Yeah, man, hit us up on all the social media at Defenders of the Banc, and that's Bank with a C, except on X or Twitter or whatever Elon Musk is calling it. That's Defend the Bank. But yeah, Defenders of the Bank and defendersofthebank.com.
Thank you guys so much for taking the time out to be here. I know it was a little last minute. We're squeezing everyone in. We have 29 teams before Tuesday of next week. So we have 2 episodes each of the next 3 days to round out the 29 teams in Major League Soccer. It's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait for the season to start, gentlemen. Thank you again.
Appreciate you, brother. Absolutely.
Yep. Thank you.